Election 2011 coverage on Manx Radio.
Well, this morning we're in the Michael constituency for our election candidate. David-Talbot lives in Dorby. Patrick Commissioner, I think you're chairman of Patrick Commission at the moment.
Just past the chair.
Just past the chair. He came to the island in 1975 to be company secretary for Walton's TV. He moved on to be MD of Walton's Finance. He has taken a company to the London Stock Exchange. He's organised a management buyout of Walton's at one stage. He's also founded a charity, Connect 2 charity. He's 63 years old. He joins us in the studio. Good morning, Mr. Talbot,
John.
formally. Bringing together commissions. You've done a bit of work in this in the past with the civic amenities side. Is it important to get people working together?
I think it's probably our future, really, unless we actually bring government, business and the third sector together. We're not going to solve some of the big social problems that we've got, as well as the convenience things, such as how we organise our amenity centres, how we actually bring information and make it available to people so they can actually better help, yes, reduce our carbon footprint.
Has it been a success, the civic amenity sites?
I think it's been an excellent success when you consider that up to 60% of waste that enters the Civic Society at St John's is actually recycled, which is an amazing statistic, really. So something like 125 tonnes a month out of the 225 that actually goes into there is actually recycled.
Well, that's cooperation between commissions. You go on to talk about a crisis of trust with politicians. So we're talking about cooperation between the public and the politicians. How do you get over that? Politicians have always been regarded with a bit of cynicism, haven't they?
Well, they have, and I think essentially they don't trust us and we don't trust them. They don't trust us with their information, and they don't trust us by allowing to vote for their MLCs.
So you'd like freedom of information brought in, presumably?
Well, I think so, and that's a reaction against the fact that we seem to have the information that's not made available to us. I mean, for example, the Chief Minister instructed the departments to save up to 15% when the VAT bombshell hit. But what's happened to that? I mean, department ministers seem to want to claim they have made reductions, but we're not seeing a collective sheet of paper which actually says what's actually being reduced.
But you've been a company secretary. You must realise there's some information that is best kept under wraps for commercial reasons.
Well, it is, but what you're talking about is you and I are shareholders of this country, and therefore there's certain information that we need. If the government wants us to have more pay as a result of this £75 million, then we need to know what's happened to the 140 million. What steps have government made to actually achieve savings so that we can feel better about taking the pain when it happens?
Let's talk about a certain part of the Manx effort. It's tourism. You've actually got you've got a registered self-catering unit, I think you run.
That's correct, yes.
So what about the tourist industry? Is it just fading away quietly, or can we do something about it?
I think that those who come to the island regularly, and we have people who come to the TT and stay with us for the last 10 years and are booked again for next year. So there's a regular input of people who like sport on the island, and I think it's concentrating on those aspects of island tourism, particularly sport, which actually will drive tourism forward. The traditional BBC beer, bingo and chips has long since gone, and I think what we need to be looking at is specialisms.
But can we get mass tourism back again at any stage?
I don't think that's a possibility. We've moved on from that now, and I think we need to be looking at ways of exploring other ways of raising revenue.
Well, let's look further afield. Constitutional reform.
Yes.
Won't the UK do exactly what they did when we talked to them about the VAT agreement and say, basically, lump it or like it, we want to change?
Well, in terms of constitutional reform, I think the line in the sand has changed quite dramatically. I think the European Union have changed the line in the UK. There's much more regulation they have to comply with. Their sovereignty has diminished. And I think we've lost a little bit ourselves. That's why I think we ought to look very carefully at whether, in actual fact, we ought to become a full sovereign state ourselves, like Canada, Australia and New Zealand.
Can we afford to do that? I mean, it seems the UK don't really care about us.
Well, there's no cost attached to that, of actually changing our status with regard to our sovereignty. The cost that we need to examine very carefully relates to our position with regard to the VAT sharing agreement. And personally, I would like to see us looking at how we investigate the actual problem associated with that. I mean, our Treasury Minister announced that 75 million was actually less than the cost of actually coming out of the VAT sharing, but then finished the statement by saying we've not actually identified what the real costs are. So I think, yes, we all in actual fact want the government costs to reduce, but what we really need to do is find out what the cost is of actually terminating the VAT sharing agreement.
Just locally in Michael, obviously you've got issues like the surgery lab. You live in Dorby.
I live in Dorby, yes.
You don't see that as a handicap?
No, I think all candidates need to actually present four things. They need to present their analysis of the situation, what they have are and will do about the problems that we've just discussed. We need to think about what we actually bring to the table in terms of our experience, have we served our apprenticeship as a commissioner, what relationships do we bring.
So living in Dorby doesn't matter. You don't.
Well, after spending a month in a constituency, I have to say that issues can be easily learned, whereas in actual fact experience and ability you bring with you.
Mr. Talbot, thank you very much. David Talbot, who's standing in the constituency of Michael in the general election, which will be held on September the 29th. It's 8 o'clock.